Hi, it's Dr. Z. Welcome to Week 2 of Psych 101. This week, we'll be covering Chapter 1 on Introduction to Psychology and Chapter 2 on Psychological Research. Let's get started with this week's overview. In this hybrid course, please pay attention to the essential heading and icon, which means that an online learning activity must be completed before attending in-person class on Thursdays. And the in-person heading and icon means attending in-person class on Thursdays. By the end of this week, you'll be able to complete these district course competencies and learning objectives. For this week, please watch the overview video here, and as an alternative, you can read the transcript of that same video. To help you stay on track, check out this week's activity checklist by either downloading the checklist here or reviewing the checklist in the table below. This chapter is separated into 4 sections. The first section is the history of psychology. Students are surprised to learn that psychology has a long history, going back to the time of Greek philosophers like Aristotle and Socrates. Please read the designated pages in the textbook and the assigned reading and complete the corresponding Nearpod lesson. I also created this fun world tour of the history of psychology using Google Earth. Now, a fun fact, the letter W is pronounced as a V in the German language. So the father of psychology is known as Wilhelm Wundt. Now, while I'm here, I do want to point out this box called For the Exam Be Able To. This box lists specific learning objectives that I want you to know for this section of the textbook. I recommend taking notes and making sure that you understand and know the answers to these objectives. Additionally, any concept that's here in bold, hint, hint, right, is considered important to know for the exam. The second section this week is Approaches to Psychology. Psychology continued to develop and expand beyond its foundation of introspection and structuralism that you will learn in the history of psychology. We now have 7 different contemporary approaches to psychology. The word approaches is just a fancy way of saying there are different ways or perspectives that psychology uses to explain why people think and do what they do. Please read the designated pages in the textbook and complete the corresponding Nearpod lesson. In a hybrid course, I will use Nearpod lessons to provide instruction on topics that I normally would have done in person. Please note the essential heading. Nearpod lessons are due on Wednesdays at 11:59 p.m. Also, please note the minimum time needed to complete the lesson. This minimum time does not take into account the time you will need to take notes, complete short answer questions, engage in lesson activities, and complete the summary quiz. The third section for this week is psychological research. The scientific study of the mind and behavior involves conducting research. Please read the designated pages in the textbook and complete the corresponding Nearpod lesson. The last section for this week is research methods. A large part of this chapter is reviewing the different ways that psychology uses the scientific method in researching human behavior and mental processes. Please read the designated pages in the textbook and attend in-person class on Thursday. One important note that I want to share. All these videos, whether optional or required, that are posted on Canvas are all helpful at understanding the concepts after you read the textbook. Please do not rely on only the videos for your learning. I encourage you to read the textbook first, complete the Nearpod lesson, and then watch the videos to strengthen your learning. Each week, you will have an activity that expands on a topic or section of the chapter. This activity is often tied to the weekly discussion board and/or the application paper. This week's activity is called Give the Doctor Some Advice. I want you to think like a researcher and be able to explain common problems and experiments and how to control for them. Please note this essential heading. Read and complete the activity handout before attending in-person class on Thursday. You will complete this handout on your own by writing the answers on the space provided on the handout. We will review this handout during in-person class on Thursday. This activity will prepare you for application paper number 1. Additionally, you will see this prep question box at the bottom of the activity page. I provided some thought-provoking questions to reflect on after you've completed the activity handout. These reflection questions will prepare you for application paper number 1. The answers to these questions are for yourself only, and they will help you to start thinking like a psychologist. Well, let's go to the assignments this week. The first assignment is discussion board number 1 on psych approaches. This discussion board ties back to the section on approaches to psychology. Each student will be assigned to one of the 7 approaches to psychology. Please see the table below here. Your job will be to create a fictional scenario from the point of view of your assigned approach that explains Pat's current situation. For example, if you're assigned to the psychodynamic approach or the psychoanalytic approach, your Pat story will reflect key features of the psychodynamic approach, such as the unconscious and early childhood experiences. Please check out the helpful hints box for suggestions on this assignment. This discussion board can be completed before attending in-person class on Thursday. The second assignment is the Chapter 1 and 2 quiz. Please make sure to complete the reading, Nearpod lesson, and online activities for this week's chapter before taking the quiz. You will have unlimited time to complete the quiz, but you will only have one attempt. You will be required to use Respondus Lockdown Browser for this quiz. No books or notes are allowed during chapter quizzes. Now I know you could choose to cheat on these weekly quizzes. However, you would just be harming yourself because these quizzes really prepare you for the exams in this course. And finally, our third assignment this week is application paper number 1. Application papers will always consist of 4 questions. The first 3 questions tie back to sections of the chapter and/or the weekly activity. For example, questions 1 and 2 tie back to the section on approaches to psychology. Question 3 ties back to the section on research methods and the activity Give the Doctor Some Advice. Now the last question will always be your wow moment for this week. I want you to reflect on what you learned online or in the textbook or during in-person class this week. This is one of my favorite questions to grade because each student shares their unique take on learning Psych 101. It is important to note that each question requires that you provide a personal example and either a textbook or video reference to support your answer. Please remember to use APA style citation for both in-text citations for textbook and video references. And with that, my friends, you will have successfully completed this week's module. I look forward to seeing you during in-person class on Thursday and reviewing your awesome assignments this week.